Hello, everybody. Welcome to the session. Bear with me while I actually share my screen. Just a moment. Um, and so good to see so many of you with your cameras on. It's nice to see the engagement. It's nice to see that you're all taking out the time for this important topic. And it is so nice to see that this is absolutely the relevant group for this. I noticed that 80 to 90% of you all said that ESG topics were either important or very important for your organization. So you're absolutely the right people for this engagement today. You all also said that almost 90% of you all said that reporting is important for you, stakeholder engagement is important for you, and that's what we're going to look at as to why this is important, why is it a growing need, etc. And you all also mentioned, 75% of you mentioned investors as a biggest group where you would like to go back and meet their needs. So I'm actually thrilled to see the results, but you all also included other stakeholders as well, for which I'm very happy. Let me just quickly, Arjun did a brilliant job introducing me. I'm just going to quickly take a moment and tell you a little bit further about myself. My name is Shivani Rajpal. I'm the head of ESG services and content at Earth Academy. Earth Academy is based in Amsterdam. We are a training and consultancy organization. We help organizations around the world in not just reporting, but also understanding the concepts of stakeholder engagement, materiality, consulting them, taking their difficult task, holding them by the hand and taking them through the process. So that's what our expertise lies in. Before starting to work for Earth Academy, I worked for 12 years at Global Reporting Initiative, where I was the director of services and training. So very relevant role over there, where I was actually working with a lot of organizations around the world and helping them meet the needs of reporting. I executed multiple ESG projects in my career of sustainability for the governments, for multinationals, and I've worked in 10 plus countries around the world, handling all of these things, global workshops, etc. As Arjun mentioned, I am an adjunct professor with Presidio Graduate School. This is based in California in the US, and I teach GRI and SDGs over there. Very relevant to this group, and I thought that I would mention this, that I've done several projects in Middle East, so I've highlighted a few of them over here. I worked with the government of KSA, with the Ministry of Economy and Commerce, to put together the National Sustainability Reporting Standards for KSA. And these standards were actually based on GRI, on the UN SDGs, the PRI, and a lot of combination of a lot of voluntary standards and frameworks then came together, and through the engagement through the stakeholder engagement that was done for the listed, non-listed companies and for the governments around KSA. And I traveled, I did a whole roadshow over there, traveling from different cities and collecting all the stakeholder engagement, doing the stakeholder engagement and collecting all the inputs for the national sustainability standards. I've worked with Aldabag group of companies, many companies under this group, to train and coach them on GRI. And I've, like I said, worked with a lot of listed and non-listed companies in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia on behalf of the Ministry of Commerce. So if you do have any questions related to this, I'll be happy to address that a little bit later, but I'm going to continue progressing with my slides over here. So we're going to begin with a very basic thing, and pardon me if some of you are completely aware of it, but I think it's always nice to bring everybody on the same page and remind ourselves for what ESG is. ESG is basically the full form is the environmental, social, and governance factors. These are central factors in measuring the sustainability and ethical impact of a company. But if we take one step back and understand what sustainability is and why did these topics even become central, or these factors become central, looking at the UN defined sustainability definition, it is meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. So along the way, us human beings have used so much of these resources around that we are actually even now taking from our future generations. That is not sustainable. So we have to do something about that. Companies are mainly responsible for a lot of emissions, for a lot of usage of natural resources, a lot of usage of other resources as well, which then they should actually take accountability and responsibility for. And that's why by measuring their environmental, social, and governance factors, they understand how they're actually contributing positively or negatively towards sustainable development. And that's what companies' major role is. If we continue forward, it's not just for sustainable development that you should look at sustainability reporting, but actually sustainability reporting has a lot of benefits, both internal benefits as well as external benefits to the organization as well. And we've seen this along so many years that these are coming through for the companies, and I'm going to just list some of those benefits out. This is not an extensive list, but this is just to highlight that you're not doing reporting just because you want to be good and move towards sustainable development, but you also reaping the benefits while you are actually being good and taking accountability for the environmental social impacts that you're making. While you actually put together your sustainability report, in the process, you find out your risks and opportunities for the organization. And of course, finding out risks and opportunities and working towards managing your risks and working more towards reaping the benefits out of the opportunities is a simple way of moving forward in the business. And so while you're actually putting together your sustainability report and the process that you follow, it helps you in identifying the risks and opportunities. It's a clear way of linking between the financial and the non-financial performance of the organization, as well as while you put together the process, it helps the organization in putting together and revising the management strategy, the policy of the organization, the business plans. While you're looking at the risks and opportunities, you keep revising the strategy of the organization to move in the right direction. While you're managing some of the environmental issues like energy, like water, etc., you even reduce costs and improve efficiencies towards that. So that's also one of the reasons why you should manage what you're actually using. You should measure what you're using so that you're actually able to manage that. When you use your when you put together a sustainability report, you may use some of the voluntary initiatives. Like many of the companies use Global Reporting Initiative, which is a voluntary global standard, but a very well-known global standard. But in some countries there is even regulations, norms, laws, codes, etc., that you would be able to manage and meet if you put together the report. And of course, last but not the least, you're able to see the trend of your organization, whether you are improving, stagnating, or declining. You'd be able to see and manage your performance related to that. And of course, compare yourself to your peers as well in your sector. So these are some of the benefits of doing sustainability reporting. So while you're taking the steps towards this, do keep in mind that you are going to see these benefits along the way as well. Now, coming back to the pressure and the what we really saw coming from the poll result as well, that the pressure is really coming from the investors, and you all want to hear the investors, and you want to go back. This is taken a quote out of Larry Fink's letter to the CEOs, which this is, I think, the third or the fourth year that he's been sending the letter to the CEO. He is the CEO of BlackRock. BlackRock is the biggest asset management company in the world, owning $10 trillion of asset under management. And what he says is he focuses on long-term strategy and asks, I'm going to read that. As the transition accelerates, companies with well-articulated long-term strategy and a clear plan to address the transition to net zero will distinguish themselves with their stakeholders. And he looks at the stakeholders from, he is an investor, he's giving his investor point of view, but he is also pointing the companies towards the customers, the policymakers, the employees, and the shareholders. Do not forget about the other stakeholders. And he further says, but the companies that are not quickly preparing themselves will see their businesses and valuations suffer. So it is really coming to the bottom line of the company that if you do not do that, if you do not take the reins in your hand now, you are going to lose as an organization. You're going to see those things coming back in your bottom line as the same stakeholders that you've not been listening are going to lose confidence in your products, in your services, in your organization, and your business is going to suffer. So this is also very much in line with what the investor needs are, investor demands are, and that's what I want to highlight from this slide. Now, just how did it all begin and where are we at this point in time? I just wanted to quickly take a moment to highlight the evolution of this practice of sustainability reporting. It started as a kind of a loose regulation where organizations were kind of doing this to be good, to get the license to operate in some countries or regions, but mainly out of their own will, which then resulted in their brand getting more valuable and their reputation being increased to now, which is the shared value, which is where we've reached, where people, organizations who are doing it rightly are now getting rewarded for this. So they're kind of now reaping the shared value benefits. So do remember that this has gone through a lot of evolution, and this is where we are at this point in time. Now, the reporting has grown quite a bit, and this is just to show, this is one of the surveys that was done by GNA Institute in the US, where it showed that 90% of the S&P 500 companies are actually now reporting, leaving only 10% of non-reporters in the S&P 500 list. And GRI is dominant. 47% of these organizations, these 90% of S&P 500 who are reporting, out of these 47% are using the widely accepted GRI standards. And of course, then they're using the other standards as well. 23% of them are aligning with SASB, 14% aligning with TCFD, 41% also respond to CDP questionnaire. And you can see by adding these figures that many companies actually even go ahead and use multiple standards and frameworks to report on their sustainability performance. Now, some of the incidents that I just want to highlight, if organizations do not take care of this, can lead to their bottom line directly. And this is also some of the areas to think about when you start reporting. There was an incident with BP in 2010 with the Deepwater Horizon oil spill, where they were fined $53.8 billion as the cleanup costs because of their negligence. So they had to take accountability with the fines. But at this point in time, you also have to realize that when they're fined, it's not just the fine, it's not just the financial implication, it's also the reputational damage that causes long-term to medium to long-term damage to their bottom line as well. Volkswagen in 2015, I think a lot of people would already be quite aware of this, rigged 11 million vehicles to pass the emission tests, and they were then fined 27.4 billion euros as a result of this unsustainable thing that they did. Cambridge Analytica in 2018 harvested personal data of 87 million Facebook users, and that resulted in Facebook losing $35 billion in value, and of course, reputational damage where customers just lost trust in that. Uber As an example, the UK Supreme Court ruled that Uber must recognize its drivers as employees, as Uber's main work is to work with contractual workers. They cannot just treat them as contractors and let them work and slog. And so Uber should take responsibility and grant them the paid leaves and pensions, as well as these should be recognized as employees of Uber. So you can see that the pressure comes from governments, from policy, from regulation, from customers, from consumers. It is from everywhere, and it is every stakeholder has their eyes on the companies that they recognize they're related to as stakeholders. I'm just going to take a moment. I'm not an expert in the UAE's ESG practice at this point in time. It's mainly what I've done is taken out some facts and figures from the research and other things. This is mainly from BDO, where I picked up the research that they did. So some of you may know much more than what I'm going to show on this slide, but this I thought was very interesting. 58% of UAE investors see obstacles to ESG investing. So there is definite need from the investor side for the UAE companies to be more sustainable, to share their performance publicly. 91% of issuers expect to be reallocating their capital towards positive environmental and social outcomes to a substantial or noticeable extent in the next 5 years. So 91% of the issuers are going to take some sort of action in the near term related to this. Both issuers and investors are equally, they want clearer data and guidance around ESG principles. So that's very clear that demand is coming from both parties. And the UAE market participants see clear opportunities in electric vehicles and charging and carbon capture. So these are just some of the facts and figures for the UAE that I thought would be very interesting for you. But then more interestingly, what are the requirements in the UAE? And again, there may be more, but these are some of the very quick requirements that I could see that the public joint stock companies in the UAE must submit their sustainability report to the Securities Commission within 90 days from each financial year end, or before the date of the annual General Assembly meeting, whichever comes earlier. And they must comply with the GRI standards, and on top of that, any other sustainability standards or requirements that are issued by the DFM or the Abu Dhabi Stock Exchange. So these are some of the requirements that I thought were very interesting for you to look at. Again, GRI comes back in picture. And I know that my friends from SmartHead are here to explain that to you. I can really recommend SmartHead because I've worked with them for quite a bit while I was at GRI. I was the main contact person for them for the certification. Now they are certified software providers that can help organizations in putting together the report. So I'm going to now, this is the end of my presentation. You'll hear from my colleagues from SmartHead about the software, but I'm going to pass the presentation back on to Arjun to take that further. Thank you, Arjun, and thank you everybody for your attention.